This is CHSR 97.9 FM here in Fredericton, New Brunswick, Canada. This is Python's Paradise, your film and music show, and this is your host, Greg Gilbert, aka the Python Hyena. And folks, I love Brian De Palma's Carrie, and Sissy Spacek. Everybody remembers the highlighted scenes from that movie. I love this movie. But I don't have Carrie on the phone. We got one of her tormentors on the phone. Somebody who was very bad in gym class. I have the very lovely and beautiful Terry Bolo. How do you do, Terry?
Hey, hi, good morning. Well, it's not quite morning anymore, but for me it is. I just had my coffee.
It's late afternoon here.
Yeah. I'm in sunny California.
Yeah, we're getting into that fall season, where weather's getting cold. Way too cold for you California people.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, before I get to Carrie and your other films, I was wondering if I could get any of your background and how you got into the business.
Well, growing up, I was just always crazy about movie stars, and I had, the old movie magazines. I had pictures all over my wall, and always dreamed of being an actress. And my family moved out to California. We had lived in Michigan and then Arizona, and then we moved out to Los Angeles because other family members were here, and my mom wanted to be closer to more family. And so then I just started doing, drama in school, and then when I got out of school, I started taking acting classes, and then I got into a workshop, a comedy workshop, which became the Groundlings, and started doing background work in TV and movies, and was a stand-in for a while too for children because I'm short, so I worked as a stand-in for kids and Bad News Bears and Kathy Rigby, and then I got hooked up with Julia Duffy on the old Newhart show. Worked with her for 10 years, and ended up on as a rehearsal actor, dialogue coach on Roseanne, and then continuing to do little parts and background work. All these years, yeah. So it's been fun. I haven't made a whole lot of money, but it's been interesting.
You double for kids.
Yes.
You don't get you don't have to go to the kids' clothing section, do you?
I've been known to, but yeah, over the years I have, but. At times, but some of the styles they're a little too youngish for me now.
You wear the same size clothes as Tony Cox from Bad Santa?
Oh, yeah, maybe, probably. I'm about a child size 14 or 16. Sometimes you can find a child size 14 or 16. Yeah, that's me. So, like at Disneyland, sometimes the little costumes. I look for stuff at Disneyland, and I bought some of the larger child sizes for that. Yeah, but no, I prefer vintage clothes, and I'm a real clothes horse, and I like a real eclectic mix of things. So I'm always looking everywhere. From high-end stores to to Kmart to thrift shops. So I just look for interesting things. So it's always been fun for me, clothes. It's always been like my second love, besides movies and TV. I love clothes and costumes, too.
Well, speaking of things interesting things, Carrie, how did you get cast in that?
Well, I mentioned the Groundlings, and one of the Groundling members' wives, Sandy Helberg, who is the father of Simon Helberg from Big Bang Theory. Anyway, Sandy's wife, Harriet, Simon's mom, she was a casting director, and she was working with Brian De Palma, and she called in a bunch of us Groundlings for Carrie. She was casting it. And Edie McClurg, who played Helen, was also a groundling. Doug Cox, who played the Beak, who was in the tuxedo T-shirt at the prom.
Yep.
He was a groundling. And myself, and one or two other people also got cast as the bad girls.
Yes.
So there was quite a little group of groundlings in Carrie.
One of the background people I need to ask about, because for some strange reason, maybe because she was really cute, but she always stood out to me, and I didn't know who she was until you mentioned her to me when we were setting this up, was Deidre Berthrong.
Yeah.
Tell me about her.
Deidre Berthong and Cindy Daly, who also was really cute. They were cast as twin sisters. They were supposed to be twins, and they had roles, but most of their lines were cut. And but I remember them very well. Yeah, because they're both really cute.
Yeah.
But just the way it goes, not for any reason, but it's just when you get in the editing room, all of a sudden you realize, oh, this has to go, this has to go. It's it's kind of upsetting, when you realize that your part's been cut, but it's not for any personal reasons. It's just that's editing.
I wonder if any of that footage remains.
I always wonder about that too. It's somewhere, it's probably stored somewhere. There's all these film vaults, It's hard to say. I think maybe a lot of directors would keep their footage, but sometimes they film so much, and so once you get in the editing room, and it takes a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
It could take a year to edit a film, and because they shoot hours and hours and hours of footage, and you have to pare it down and piece it together and have it all make sense and get 2 hours or under, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. I tried to get some footage from something. Oh, I worked on Spinal Tap, and I tried to get some footage just for my own personal reel.
Yeah.
And I got the runaround and everything, but they just said there's just so much footage, and it's like no one really wanted to go looking for it or whatever. So it's difficult, but I don't think it's impossible.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. No, I've seen Carrie so many times. I notice all these classmates, and yeah, Deidre was one that just kind of stood out. So
she had that haircut. Who was the skater who had that famous haircut, the wedge haircut? Anyway, yeah, there was a famous skater, and she got this haircut, and all of a sudden it became all the rage. And Deidre had, I'm blanking on her name right now, but I think she was married to Dino Martin, Dorothy Hamill. Dorothy Hamill.
Okay.
She had that Dorothy Hamill haircut. Yeah.
Deidre's still around?
I'm not sure. I heard that she had passed away, and then I heard that wasn't true. So, I don't know.
I actually read that too, and I heard it was not true.
Yeah. So, people are easier to find, because of the internet. So, I've had a lot of people track me down, and you found me, and
Mm-hmm.
so you could probably do a search for her. Sometimes
Yeah.
people leave the business and move away, or get married, and so their name is different. So sometimes it's a little harder to find people.
Yeah. Well, I loved Carrie, and I was one of these people that was bullied in school, so I could kind of identify with Carrie, and I'm going to tell you, a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people say, there shouldn't be nudity in film. Well, there is times when I think nudity really works in films. Brian De Palma's done it twice. Once was in a later film, Dressed to Kill, where the whole point was the sexual frustration of the Angie Dickinson character, which to me made sense. And the second one, which was earlier, was in Carrie. I loved the nude shower scene, because when he, you see the steam and whatnot. You see all of these very, very nice-looking girls going about, whipping each other with the towels and this and that. And it's all very developed and sexy, I suppose, if you could use that word. And then it goes to Sissy Spacek, who's everybody's out of the way, and then you get Sissy Spacek as Carrie, who's in the shower, and she's getting lathered up. Now, her nude scene takes a very opposite approach to what we just seen with the other girls, because, well, they were all sexual. She was about to get her period. So her nude scene was about growth.
That whole opening sequence is so beautiful, with the slow-mo and the steam and the music and everything, and then all of a sudden it ends with this young girl who's just horrified because there's blood coming out of her. She has no idea what it is. She thinks she's dying. Mm-hmm. And, so it's like, the movie's like, the girl's coming out of the shower, oh, look, it's so pretty, and, oh, they're all so cute, and it just pans across, and then all of a sudden, there's this woman who's, like, in this whole different world, this whole different reality,
yep,
who's, like, completely horrified. I know! It's like the movie just grabs you from the very beginning. It's great. It really holds up.
Yeah. Tell me, that shower scene, was that hard for the girls to do the nude scene? Do you remember anything about that?
Oh, of course I do. I sure do. Well, we were all hired knowing that was going to take place. Mm-hmm. So on the day of, everybody was very respectful, and only we had a skeletal crew. Only the people that absolutely needed to be there were there. Mm-hmm. And we had extra wardrobe people holding thick terry cloth robes for all of us. So after each shot, we could get out and put on a robe, mm-hmm. and be warm and covered. And so because there were other nude people around, you didn't feel so naked, so to speak. Like no one was staring just at you. You know what I mean? It felt comfortable. It really did. They made it as comfortable as possible for us, and then gave us a bump of $20.
Well, I noticed Amy Irving had her bra on, She wasn't completely nude. Was that her choice, or do you remember anything about that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And poor Sissy, she was this was for days. Because even after the opening sequence that was shot, they were still doing coverage, no pun intended, coverage of Sissy in the shower for days. And I even worked as a stand-in for her part of the time on the whole shoot. And they just covered her, again, no pun intended, from every angle and every which way. And for some odd reason, Brian let some of the extra girls go watch the dailies every night after work. And this is the only time this has ever happened in my whole career that I was allowed to go see dailies. And they're just showing her from every angle, nude, and getting with the shower and the blood coming down and close-ups of this and that, and Sissy got really upset, and she got up and walked out and said, "Thanks a lot, Brian." And I kind of got the feeling that it was overkill. They didn't really need to do all this. It was just kind of like boys will be boys kind of thing. You know what I mean? And she got really pissed off because what ends up in the movie, it's not as all bearing or revealing as the stuff that was shot. Okay. So I just feel like, okay, we've got a naked girl here, let's just photograph everything. It was overdone, I thought, and she got very upset.
I love Sissy Spacek, and I gotta say, here's the thing. There's a lot of jokes around about movies where you can tell that the cast are not teenagers, you know? There's always a joke about that, but man, Sissy Spacek was 27 and she actually looked like a teenager. And kudos to her because she's brilliant in Carrie.
She is. And we all were around that age. I know. We're all pretty old.
Well, you're 39.
Oh, my God.
You're all 39 in my eyes.
Thanks.
You look like Tinkerbell. I saw your profile picture.
Oh, God.
Yeah, Sissy Spacek is brilliant in this movie, and everybody, of course, remembers, like, she took a lot of stuff, like being swatted in the head by the Bible held by her mom, played by Piper Laurie, and drug into that closet, and of course, the famous scene where the pig's blood is dumped on her, you know. Do you remember anything about her doing that?
Oh, yeah. The whole prom scene took several weeks, and she was covered in corn syrup.
Yeah.
14 hours a day, day in, day out. So it wasn't pleasant. It was just physically grueling. And I don't know, you've said you've seen it a lot, but I don't know if you realize that the blood didn't really fall all over her very well. And I think they only did it once. They only had the one shot. But so when you first see all the blood, it's not covering her dress. It didn't fall the way they wanted it to.
Okay.
And, but then later you see that there's more on her dress. But they didn't go again with that one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they just had that one shot at it. But I don't know also if you noticed this, and this is kind of a new thing at the time, and they were explaining it to us, the Luma crane. And that prom scene, it starts out with P.J. Souls as Norma, and Michael Talbot, geez, whatever happened to him, going around collecting the ballots. So it's one shot. There is not a cut, and it's this Luma crane. And it follows them around the whole room as they pick up the ballots, and then it goes around to the stage and then up the side of the backdrop of the stage, up and follows the rope up to the bucket of blood. That's all one continuous shot.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And so I remember, when they were telling us about this crane and how they were going to do this, and so that was fascinating. It was quite an education working on that film, and like I said, I worked as a stand-in, and we got to go see the dailies, and a lot of times the camera operators will say, "Here, you want to see the shot?" and they'd let me look in the camera, and I don't know, it's just this really educational experience for me. It was the first thing that I'd worked on for more than a day or two here or there. You know what I'm saying? It was I worked on it for weeks.
What was Sissy Spacek's reaction to the quote unquote pig's blood? I know she knows it's going to happen, but of course, when anything like that happens, it's can you really prepare yourself?
Well, like I said, it was physically grueling for her because every morning, when you come in to work on a show and you put on your wardrobe, well, she had to get covered in corn syrup. The blood was corn syrup. And I don't know what they put in it to make it opaque, but it was food coloring and corn syrup, and I don't know, something else just to make it look more like blood. But it was very sticky, and she had to be in that, for hours and hours.
Talk about the scene where everything starts, everything's on fire, and she's walking along that. Was that nerve-wracking?
Well, I wasn't in the gym when it all caught on fire.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. If by that point, yeah, I can't remember why I wasn't in there. But it was very well controlled. You know, there was firemen, all on the set with fire extinguishers and everything. So it was all pretty well under control. But for some reason, my character, or a lot of the people, I guess they supposedly had already died.
Okay.
You know, by the time the fire started, but because the hoses came out, and so people got crushed and trampled. So yeah, there was a lot of ways different people died, and then the whole thing burned down. Yeah.
Did they ever shoot your death scene in that?
No, I never died on camera.
Yeah, because looking around, like there's very few shots of you or Deidre in that scene.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really remember, but for some reason I was already out.
You don't think you bored a hole and got out?
But there's also one shot where they actually came over and asked me to run across the room, and the camera follows me and then pans up to the window where John Travolta and Nancy Allen are looking in at all the horror. So they actually asked me to do that. And I guess, I think Brian kind of liked what I was doing, because I saw the AD talking to Brian, and then he came over to me and said, okay, we want you to, and he told me to do that, to run across the room and for the camera to pan up,
Okay. Well, Sissy Spacek, of course, as we said, great in the movie, and of course that conflict there at the end of the film, that was just powerful, and of course we all know the dream sequence. All of that was very, very powerful. So, and Sissy got an Oscar nomination for it. So, I guess she really deserved it more than just her performance.
She was nominated? I don't really remember.
She was nominated, yep.
Yeah, oh, that's so great. And I know that Piper Laurie was, of course. An interesting thing about Piper Laurie is she came out of retirement to do Carrie.
Yep.
And she had done The Hustler 15 years earlier, was nominated for an Academy Award, didn't work for 15 years, and then the next movie she works on, Carrie, was nominated again. So just think of all the wonderful performances we missed in those 15 years from that marvelous actress.
Did you meet Piper Laurie? I know you're not in scenes with her, but...
Yes, I did. As a matter of fact, I was asked to stand in for the closet scene. And I was standing in for, I guess was I standing in for her or for Sissy? Let me think now. I guess, yeah, I can't really remember, but I met her when, because there was hardly anybody on the set that day, because it was this closet and the two actresses and the stand-ins. So I introduced myself to her. And then, many, many years later, I went to a screening at the Egyptian Theater, and they were showing Hustler and Carrie.
Oh, wow.
And she was there. And Edie McClurg and I both went, and we had our picture taken with her, and she was signing her book.
Okay.
So it was a book signing event. And then just a few years ago, there was the 40th anniversary fundraiser, and where they did a Q&A, and they asked me to be in the Q&A, which I couldn't believe. I was shocked, but I think they needed an extra person because a couple of people didn't show, or one of the guys, Anson Downs, who plays, I guess, the student body president, he didn't want to do it. And so Nancy Allen, she was producing it. It was for her charity. She goes, we'll put Terry up on the Q&A. And so that was really fun. And people were in costume. It was just, it was so much fun. And I ended up sitting next to Piper Laurie during the screening, watching her watch herself. I mean, it was just wild. You know, it's like, oh, my God, I can't even believe this. Sitting next to Piper Laurie, watching her watch herself and Carrie. It's crazy.
Wow. What was wrong with the student president guy that he didn't want involved?
I don't know. I just don't think he felt comfortable being on stage answering questions off the cuff. You know, some people are like that. They're good with the script, but, you know, they don't like things that are not scripted, and I'm kind of the other way around. It's like I'm terrified I'm going to forget my lines, and I'd rather, you know, wing it, improvise, or, yeah. But anyway, yeah, he just didn't feel like he wanted to be in the Q&A. You know, some people aren't comfortable with it, that's all.
Well, then maybe you should be the student body president.
That was really, really a fun event, and we were at the Ace Theater downtown, the old United Artists Theater. Beautiful, beautiful theater. It was packed. It was sold out. So many people in costume. It was really fun.
Yeah, was Sissy at that one?
No, she wasn't there, and Billy Katt didn't make it. And oh, by the way, a little side note, I ended up working in 2 movies with Billy Katt. We were in Carrie together, and then Big Wednesday, and where he played.
What about Big Thursday? Yeah.
So he sent a video, and let's see, Betty Buckley. Betty Buckley, it was a fundraiser, okay, for Nancy Allen's cancer charity. And so they asked Betty to come, and she goes, well, she wanted first-class airfare, 3 nights at the Chateau Marmont in a limo.
Oh, wow.
And Nancy goes, oh, Betty, it's a fundraiser. That was her rider, though. That's what she required.
Betty Buckley was great in that movie. She is still quite active in you know, M. Night Shyamalan movie. She was in Split. You know, it's great seeing her still around.
Oh, she's fabulous, and she's a wonderful singer. I mean, the Katt, and you know, yeah, she's you know, quite a talent. Yeah, I love her.
Yeah, well, what a gym teacher. Talk about the scene where she walks up and just belts Nancy Allen in the face.
Well, that was an interesting scene, too, because the way they shot it, they had us all standing in a little clump because they wanted everything in focus. So they had a lens that they had 2 different focuses on it. I don't know how to explain it. But we had to, you know, stay in one spot in this clump, and then Nancy and Betty were in the foreground, and then all the people in the background. So when she slaps her, I think she really did slap her too. It's like I have this reaction. It's like I'm horrified, and I clasp my hands over my mouth. And whenever I see that, it makes me laugh. It's just, but you know, I'm way in the background, so unless you've seen the movie many times, you wouldn't notice it. But I was always doing things to draw attention to myself.
I remember somebody clapping their hand over their mouth, though.
It's like I'm so horrified that the teacher hit one of my friends. You know, it's just like, oh my God. You know, it's like one of the most horrible things I've ever seen in my life. And so I think that's why I ended up in the movie so much, is because I was always looking to see where the camera was going to be, and I was always doing something, some kind of business or something. So, again, you know, the cutting room floor, I mean, like the 2 girls that played the twins, I ended up in it more than they did, and they were cast in roles, and I was just a non-union extra.
Yeah, but you're in a lot of scenes, and of course, Nancy Allen. I've always loved Nancy Allen. I've tried to get her on the show because I wanted to get her on to talk about this film and Dress to Kill, and I don't know. I can't seem to budge her. I don't know, but I loved her especially in Dress to Kill. De Palma got a lot of great work out of her. Of course, he was married to her because he's obviously got good taste. But
well, their attraction started on Carrie. I think he was married, and she was very interested in him, and so I guess that's kind of where it started.
well, you know something I did notice. She can do something that I can't do, and a lot of you couldn't do. When you guys are being punished and doing your setups, she just bends herself right in half and touches her toes. If you've noticed, she's the one that seems to do that well. Like,
Pretty limber.
yep.
That was fun. That whole detention gym class scene was fun to do. Yeah, a lot of different setups. Yeah, and at one point when I'm doing sit-ups, and the camera's of course on a track on the ground and it's coming along, and when it gets to me, I don't know. I had to really try not to smile and laugh. But you can kind of see that because it was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm doing this. I'm working on this movie. Here comes the camera. I just kind of broke character momentarily. Seeing the camera come at me as I'm doing my sit-up.
Yeah. So what was it like working with Nancy?
She's a sweetheart. Everybody was really nice on the show, and even Sissy, but we didn't relate to her too much because she wanted to maintain that separateness from the rest of the girls. But she'd come in the morning and she'd be real sweet in her Texas accent. Hi, everybody, how y'all doing and everything. And then we would all just leave her alone and she would go off by herself or whatever. Nancy was always really sweet too, and like I said, I think she was a little preoccupied with Brian at the time. And the girls, the actresses, they all had their little dressing rooms, and some of us other girls who are background, we don't get dressing rooms, so they were in their dressing rooms a lot of the time. So there wasn't a whole lot of hanging out with them, but when they were around, they were nice. Yeah.
Yeah, another person I've reached out to too, and still no connection, was William Katt, and of course he was at one time the greatest American hero.
I know. Oh, and he is such a doll. He is such.
Everybody remembers that hair.
What a dreamboat! Oh my God! For that fundraiser, and we had the costume contest. This guy shows up in a blue tuxedo, 70s, with big wide lapels and a ruffled shirt and a gigantic blonde curly wig. I mean, it was so hilarious. It was so over the top. And I don't know if I can't remember if he won the costume contest or not, but it was just hilarious.
Was there people dressed up like Carrie with the blood?
Yeah, some people were, but mostly it was. One guy mocked up the gym shirt, the gold gym shirt with the Bates High School with the B on it.
Okay.
He came as one of the gym girls. It was very funny. A lot of people were just in prom dresses, like dressed for the prom.
Okay.
So not everybody was dressed as a character. Well, there was a couple of John Travolta's types with the puffy vest, and there was a few people dressed like my friend Doug, the Beak, with the tuxedo.
I love that.
I said, Doug, look, you're an icon. So a lot of people were dressed like him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah, no, I like William Katt, and
wait, let me just interject this. There was a couple people dressed as Dirty Pillows.
Dirty Pillows.
Yeah. So there was a lot of imagination in some of the costumes. Yeah, the same as
They should have won.
I can't remember who did, but it was just a scream. Yeah, it was really cute.
And Amy Irving, I gotta say, has got among the most beautiful eyes in Hollywood.
Oh, Amy! Oh my God, Amy had the DP fired because she thought that he wasn't good enough because there were bags under her eyes in the dailies. So she got the DP fired.
Ooh.
And she was dating Spielberg at the time, and I remember hearing this story about her. Oh, and they held the plane for us, and it's like, oh well. She was, she was a little standoffish, but one day she came up to me and said, "You're really good in the dailies." And I was shocked. I went, "Oh my God, thank you." You know, I was like, "Wow, well, that was nice of her." She didn't have to say that.
Well, Soderbergh's had her in a couple of movies, though. Steven Soderbergh.
Yeah, I don't know where she's been. I mean, you know, it's like so many of these girls were just poised to, you know, take off. And you know, Amy did a lot of work, but you know, Amy and Nancy both. I mean, they're not working that much, and you know, but Nancy left the business. She runs the cancer charity now, and I don't know what Amy has been doing, but you know, she's so wealthy, she never has to work.
Well, maybe I'll have to pitch that to Nancy. Tell her come on here and talk about her cancer charity. And,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And let's see. Oh, of course you know that maybe not everybody out there knows that Amy Irving's mother played her mother.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to. Just a sec. I'm gonna get that up on Internet Movie Database here. Her mom's name, Priscilla Pointer.
Oh,
yeah.
Priscilla Pointer. Yeah.
Yeah, she was really good in it as well.
Yes.
Like, she's been in a lot of movies with Amy, because they were both in Mickey and Maude as well.
Oh.
Yeah. And of course, I love PJ Souls.
Oh my God, she's so adorable. And then, she was really sweet too. And you know, the whole red cap thing. I mean, that was her thing. She wore that to the audition. And Brian really liked her, and he expanded her role, and he gave her all this chance to improvise scenes. So her part got much bigger than what it was written.
Yeah, this led to Halloween for her, and I gotta say,
High School.
Yeah, I love Rock and Roll High School. I've interviewed a number of people from that film. I haven't had PJ on yet. I'm trying to get her, but eventually I might make it. But PJ, here's a funny thing about the cap thing. When I was in high school, like 30 years ago, anybody caught wearing a ball cap in the halls, they either had their ball cap taken off their head or they had their ball cap taken away, you know. That was not allowed. So when I see PJ Souls wearing the ball cap, I'm like, seriously, she would not have survived at Fredericton High School here.
I don't know. I don't know why. What was the reason for the confiscation of the ball caps?
I guess we weren't supposed to have caps on our head when we entered the school. I never had anything taken off my head, but I've seen it done.
Yeah, I don't understand why. I mean, but you know, things have changed in schools as far as dress codes and stuff like that. So, at the time, or I guess Carrie was supposed to be current at that time. I don't know. I guess for whatever reason, maybe ball caps are considered to be some kind of gang wear or something. I don't know. But
PJ kept screwing up when you guys were exercising too.
Oh.
Apparently, there's a story about her during the massacre scene where her eardrum got injured during the house scene.
Hospital.
Yeah.
She had to go to the hospital. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that. And the shot where it happened is in the movie.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Because that was powerful, those spray and those hoses.
Mm-hmm.
It was really forceful.
Did you get hit with the hose?
No, I don't know why I managed to escape, the worst parts of everything that was going on in there. But then I just remember them saying, okay, you're out. It's like, oh, okay. So, because they just took certain people out, and, there were less and less people. So they didn't want a whole lot of people in there when the fire was going on. And when the hose was happening, I remember my friend was still in there, and she came out, and she goes, he's crazy. He's crazy. I said, what? And she goes, in between setups, some of the prop people were coming in, jabbing water on them and, just making them look, wet if they dried off. And it was taking too long. And Brian just says, oh, just hose them down. and she was in there with the fire, and she felt that it was dangerous, and like she got a little scared in there. She goes, he's crazy.
John Travolta, I've heard so many great things about him, in terms, I heard he's very approachable for autographs. I've heard people that's worked with him say the nicest things about John Travolta. What are your memories of him?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't get very close to him. He didn't work in all the scenes that we were in. There, at the prom scene, all his stuff, it was probably like B-roll, or it's like he wasn't there. I think he might have visited the set, but he wasn't working during all that prom stuff, because he's not in there. That scene of him looking in the window, there was nobody there when they shot him looking in the window.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, or he was just, and then there was the scene in the car,
yeah,
with her in the car. In the deep background, there's the beehive where all the kids hang out,
mm-hmm.
and we were all there that night, but we never saw him. He was on the other side of the parking lot, and we were all inside, the little soda fountain or whatever it was. But we never saw him.
Okay.
I knew he was there, but, he just went from his trailer to the car and back again. There was no really need for him to go into the beehive. That was just, deep background.
Well, speaking of transferring, Edie McClurg went from being a nasty student to being the secretary of Jeffrey Jones and Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Right.
She's funny.
Edie's great. She was in Cheech and Chong's next movie also. She was so hilarious in that. Yeah, she's very, very funny.
She was in... Well, she worked with Rodney Dangerfield in Back to School. She had a hilarious cameo in that. And, of course, Natural Born Killers. She and Dangerfield played a couple in that have an ill fate.
And Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Yeah.
Steve Martin. She gets to tell Steve Martin he's fucked.
She is very funny, and it's great to see her when opportunity comes up. And the other person I got to bring up, of course, Sidney Lessick, as doing the.
Oh, he was so funny.
Yeah, beautiful. Is that the beautiful you mean, Carrie? Oh, I love that. Yeah. Talk about Doug Cox. We got to mention the Beat because I'm hoping to get him on here at some point and talk about his tuxedo. He probably has that thing framed in his house.
He says he doesn't feel comfortable talking about himself. It's like, Doug, it's over the phone. It's no biggie. You can talk about things about the movie. You don't have to just talk all about yourself.
Yeah.
You can talk about your impressions and other people. And he says, let me think about it. So, I just put it out there. I told him you were interested. And but Doug and I were in the Groundlings together. We're original founding members. And so I've known him for many, many years. And he's so talented. And he always comes up with something. I mean, improvising. He's always can tie things together or come up with an ending, or if the scene is faltering, he comes up with something. He really is such a talent, and he's working. He gets parts here and there on stuff, and I said, Doug, I saw your name in the credits on something, and I said, but I don't remember seeing you. He goes, well, the back of my head was there. He said, my scene was cut, and I'm like, oh, so he's getting work, but it's like I said, you just never know what's going to happen once they get into the editing room.
Yeah, no, I hope he comes on here. He'll be treated well. You're comfortable. Yeah.
I'll mention it to him again. He said let me think about it. You might just reach out to him also yourself. He's on Facebook.
Yeah.
He's easy to find. Yeah.
Sure. And of course, Michael Talbot, you mentioned,
Whatever happened to him?
Well, I know he was competing with Kurt Russell in used cars,
And then wasn't he on Miami Vice? Wasn't he on that show?
Oh, he could have been. I don't know.
I think he was. And, yeah, he's another one. You'd think like, oh, my God, their career is really going to take off. And then they just kind of fall off the radar.
I love that scene with where he says, I want to help. It goes, no, I'm just in time. He goes, no, I can't be here then. I'll be here at 8.
Yeah.
Yep, making his own rules as he goes along.
Everybody was, had this like quirky little character thing going on. It was great,
Yeah.
And I think Brian really encouraged that for people to find their character and just really expand on who they are. And yeah, it's just such a great movie, and it really holds up. And every time I see it, it's just it really captures you and holds your attention, even though you've seen it so many times and you know everything that's going to happen. And I didn't know if you ever read anything about Piper Laurie, but she thought it was a comedy.
Oh.
And she is very funny. She's very funny in it. But Brian just pulled her back a little bit. He goes, not quite so big. She thought it was a comedy. And so she left some of her little, comedic little ticks in there. But he kept her from, being a little too over the top. But
well, she's great in it. She got nominated as well.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Yeah, those scenes between her and Sissy were powerful.
And that hair, and I think she was wearing a blouse, and they copied the blouse and made it the nightgown. And her hair, that's her hair. And they wanted Carrie White's mother. What's her name? What's her name now? Her first name, Mrs. White. Anyway,
Mrs. White. I'm gonna find it here.
Pulled back hair.
Margaret White.
Margaret, yeah, pulled back hair tight in a bun. But when they saw, all her crazy curly hair, he said, well, no, let's go with that. We're going to go with your hair. And so, all these little interesting things, are fun to learn about, in the production, stuff like that.
Here's a question. Did you ever see any of the sequels, like the Rage Carrie 2 and the remake of it?
No. But I did go see a small theater production of the musical, and I really liked it.
Yeah? Does Carrie White sing in it?
And the music was good. Yeah, I really liked it.
Sissy, of course, speaking of singing, she went on to win an Oscar for Coal Miner's Daughter. Another brilliant performance by her.
Incredible. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah. Sissy's very good at being able to play off younger, because even in Coal Miner's Daughter, I think she started out younger than her character in Carrie, and she
supposed to be 14.
She pulls it off beautifully. But
I know, it's just amazing.
Did you go to the premiere of Carrie?
No, I think there was a cast and crew screening. And I think I missed that because I was performing on stage with the Groundlings. and so I think I missed going to that.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I got to mention some of your other films here. You mentioned, of course, William Katt and Big Wednesday. You know, you play a party girl on that. You know what? I have not seen Big Wednesday. I don't know why, because I know that who's the fellow? John Milius directs it and has the guy from Conan the Barbarian, the surfer guy, and Jerry Lopez.
Red Brown.
Yeah.
Red Brown. Oh, yeah, Jerry Lopez. Oh, he had all the top surfers at the time, top surfers in the world at the time, doubling the guys, the actors. Yeah, that was quite an incredible experience. Again, I worked on it for a long time. I also was a casting assistant on the movie, so I worked on it for months before we started filming, and then that's how I got into doing extra work. Well, actually, I did Carrie first. Carrie was first, but I was a non-union, and when I worked on Big Wednesday, they got me into the union. There was a separate guild at the time for the extras, but now it's SAG, so it's the actors and extras are the same guild now. But back then they were different, and I was already in SAG because I had done a small part on something, but they got me into the extras guild so that I could go on location and be one of the beach bunnies.
Well, William Katt in this, Jean Michael Vincent, of course, just recently passed, and
yeah, I went to, there was a memorial service for him that I went to, and Billy Katt was there, so I got to see him again. And interesting story. I talk about Amy Irving's mother playing her mother. In Big Wednesday, Billy Katt's mother plays his mother, Barbara Hale.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
He was famous for Della Street on Perry Mason.
Okay.
Barbara Hale.
Gary Busey in this.
Oh, my God.
Patty Abinville. Yeah. Lee Purcell, of course, went on to be in Valley Girl. Love her.
Lee Purcell. Lee Purcell looks so great today. I couldn't believe it. I saw her at the John Michael Vincent Memorial, and she looks fantastic.
Yeah. And Joe Spinell of Maniac is in this as well.
Joe Spinell, you know, he loved to work, and you know, he would show up at production offices and, hey, got anything I can do for you? You know what? He just always like dug up his own work like that. And John Milius just loved him, and yeah, gave him a part. And of course, he's in The Godfather, and he was a presence. I mean, he was almost like Harry Dean Stanton in that he would show up in all these different movies, you know. Of course, they probably knew each other. But, yeah, he was one of those really great character actors that you see all over the place.
Yeah. No, Big Wednesday, John Milius, of course, is tremendous director. He was involved with Apocalypse Now. He did Conan the Barbarian, and he was also the inspiration for Walter in The Big Lebowski.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
I know. There's nothing. He's really nothing like that. But I think because of the way he talked and that his machismo. Yeah. Because I mean, of course, John never was in the armed forces. But he liked to pretend like he was. I love John Milius. He's not well. He had a stroke about 10 years ago.
Okay.
And I don't know if you knew that. And he can't speak.
Oh, it's. I interviewed Sven Ole Thorsen from Conan the Barbarian, and he spoke very highly of him. And I didn't know he couldn't speak anymore.
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean, someone with that talent and that brain, and you know, such a wonderful writer, and he can't write or speak. I don't know if he can read. I don't know. He's very limited in what his capabilities are.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
He has a caregiver. Yeah, it's. I went to see him not too long ago. My friend Daryl Fetty, he played Waxer.
Okay.
In Big Wednesday. And one of the surfers who pretends that he's gay.
Okay.
and then ends up getting killed. And then there's a scene where they're all sitting on Waxer's grave drinking. So that was my friend Daryl Fetty. Anyway, he and I and another friend of ours went to visit John a couple years ago. And it's very difficult because you have to do all the talking.
Yeah.
Say yes, yes, and a few words. He can only say a few words.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah. It's terrible.
I thought he was a terrific director, and of course he was involved in the writing of Apocalypse Now, and he directed Conan the Barbarian. If you look at the endings of both of those movies, very similar.
Well, he's also a ghostwriter and on a lot of things, and fixer. You know, it's like what do they call it? Script doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he just has his own unique style. And he wrote Red Dawn and The Wind and the Lion, and wrote and directed that. And he's just a great storyteller.
Now, The In-Laws, you're featured in that.
Well, when I was working as a casting assistant at Warner Brothers,
Mm-hmm.
and I was looking at scripts, and we were casting things, and I would read the script, and like, oh, can I do this? I could do this. And so, I was a patient in the dentist's office, and you can barely see me or notice me or hear me, but I just remember that day because Arthur Hiller, the director,
Mm-hmm.
he was one of those that yells all the time.
Okay.
And we did that scene so many times. I swear, it was just unbelievable. It wasn't that tough of a scene, but when you see directors like that, and they just do take after take after take, and yelling at it's like, how do they get a movie made? I mean, you know what I mean? I worked one day on it, and I just thought, oh my God, get me out of here. He was a monster.
I've interviewed.
It was so funny. I love The In-Laws.
I've interviewed Penny Pizer, who's in this. She was in All the President's Men, and she loved working in this movie.
And also Ed Begley Jr. Oh my God, he's another one. He's in everything. I've been in 5 or 6 or 7 different things with him. We were in The In-Laws together. We both worked on. What else did we? I don't know. It's like. Spinal Tap. The movie. Oh God, what was that movie with Diane Lane? Streets of Fire.
Oh, I just saw that for the first time.
Oh my God!
Yeah.
I'm surprised that movie it doesn't have a cult following. I thought it was really good. Lee Ving was in it.
Mm-hmm.
Bill.
Diane Lane looks gorgeous in it.
Oh, she's fantastic. Not Bill Pullman, but Bill. He just passed away. Bill
Paxton. Yeah.
Bill Paxton, who is very funny. Oh my God, I love Bill Paxton.
Yeah.
And later went on to what was that? That Mormon thing he did. What was that called? Something Love. That HBO thing. He plays the Mormon with several wives.
Oh, I don't watch television.
Big Love. Big Love. Oh, yeah. He was a star of that. Oh, Bill Paxton was wonderful.
Yeah.
He did the Hatfield and McCoy's thing that my friend Daryl did, who played Waxer in Big Wednesday. Daryl's a writer-producer, and he did the Hatfields and McCoy's TV series with Kevin Costner.
Okay.
And, Bill Paxton was in that. Anyway, so what were we talking about?
We're talking about Streets of Fire.
Oh, yeah, and I loved working on that. I worked on that for weeks and weeks. We were shooting day for night. We had streets at Universal covered over with tarps, so it was night. We had a lot of night shots, but we worked in the day. But they covered over, it's like we were working in a big tent.
And what an underrated actor Rick Moranis was, because he did Ghostbusters the same year. Talk about two diverse performances.
Oh, he was adorable in that, and also Michael Pare. Whatever happened to him? How come he didn't?
He worked with a lot with Uwe Boll. Michael
Pare. He was a babe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then Robert Townsend was in that. He was one of the singers, that singing group.
Okay.
And he was pilfering footage. He was pilfering raw film from Walter Hill. Like, are you going to use that to make his what was it? His movie he made, Hollywood Hustle or something like that. His own movie that he made, Robert Townsend.
Hollywood Shuffle.
Hollywood Shuffle. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And E.G. Daily.
Yep.
Who was later in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
And Valley Girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I got to talk about Oh God Book 2. I've had Moosey Dryer on here from Oh God, and anytime anybody's in a film with George Burns, this guy lived to be 100 years old. I mean, he just... I
was the only person besides George Burns who was in both Oh Gods. And again, because I worked at Warner Brothers in the casting department, it's like, oh, can I do this? So yeah, I got a little part. I had a little scene with John Denver in the first one, over the opening credits, and then I was in the ladies' lounge in Book 2.
I love the original film. I guess you must have been in the supermarket scene then.
The grocery store. I was trying to pull shopping carts apart. Now, whenever I go, I swear to God, all these years later, every time I go to pull a grocery cart and they're stuck together, I think about that scene, because that's what I did. I was trying to pull the grocery carts apart, and John Denver comes over and helps me. It was just a little vignette with the opening credits.
Yeah, because I don't see that listed on your IMDb. Yeah.
Yeah, my IMDb isn't complete. I don't know. I don't pay that much attention to it, but.
What was George Burns like, or did you get to interact with him?
All those old Hollywood people, they're all the best. They really are.
Mm-hmm.
They're not snooty, and he would hang out and talk to people on the set, and like when I worked with Tony Curtis on Bad News Bears. I mean, all the old Hollywood people, they're much more approachable than the new big stars are these days.
Yeah.
Who act like like they're royalty or something. I mean, no, but these old Hollywood people are the best, because they love. They understand that that's their job,
mm-hmm.
and they love the attention. They love what they do. They love telling stories. I mean, yeah, he was great.
Yeah, and of course, you're uncredited as a passenger in Airplane 2, the sequel.
Oh my God, I'm in that a lot. Yeah, that was a lot of fun to work on too. That was like probably several weeks working on that as well. That was very, very funny, going to the moon and Sonny Bono with the bomb, and oh my God.
Yeah, I interviewed Lee Bryant, who was the woman assaulted over and over in the original Airplane. I guess she appears in Airplane 2 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that film's going to be 40 years old next year. Can you believe that? And it's still as funny as ever.
I know.
I think my favorite joke in Airplane 2 was where they're in space and they push this button and you see William Shatner turn around, face the screen, and he's talking, and then all of a sudden William Shatner walks through the door. I like how he just happens to be standing behind there.
Oh my God! And Robert Hayes. I mean, whatever happened to him? What a cutie pie he was. Where'd his career go?
Well, I think in Airplane, he murdered more people than the average slasher film villain without even trying. Everybody got bored with his story. Yeah, no, I like him, and Julie Haggerty.
She's so adorable.
I guess they're supposed to have a big thing with Airplane next year, and I guess Robert Hayes and Julie Haggerty and people like that are supposed to be out to the conventions. So, yeah. And of course, we have to talk about you being a biker chick and Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
I swear, that was so much fun. Paul was in the Groundlings with us, and the co-writer, Phil Hartman, of course, Phil Hartman, was... Phil and I were talking, and I said how I'd always wanted to be a play a waitress in a truck stop. And he goes, well, there's a waitress in the truck stop in the Pee Wee movie that Paul and I are writing. He said, I can bring you in on it. He said, no guarantees. I said, that's cool. And he goes, we'll return the favor, because I brought him in on an interview for Big Wednesday, and he got cast as one of the surfers, a small role, and then he broke his leg, and he couldn't do it. So, he got cast, and, because I brought him in. But so he says, I'll return the favor. I'll bring you in. I said, oh, that would be great. So I read for the waitress part, and I remember seeing Diane Salinger that day, and I just thought she didn't seem to be right for the part, because when Phil told me that they based it on Betty Davis in Petrified Forest, and so I thought about that, and so I was playing it, real, naive and kind of wide-eyed, innocent, and whatever, and Paul said later, he said, you know what, everyone loved you. He said, everyone thought you were really good. He said, it's just that, and this is something that he learned, making his movie, that it kind of casts itself. It takes on a life of its own. He said, you're seeing several people, and you were really good, and then Diane came in, and she just did something completely different, really just not unexpected, not what anyone was thinking about for that part. And they really liked it, so they went with her. And so I was at a friend's house, another, groundling friend of mine, and her friend was visiting, and he was out here from New York, because he got hired to be second assistant director on Pee-wee's movie. So she was asking me, so how'd your interview go? And I told her, and I said, they have someone else, and so Harvey says, well, I'm going to need some biker chicks. You want to do that? Be an extra part. And I'm like, yeah. So when I showed up on the set, I don't think Paul was expecting me, and he goes, Terry's too glamorous to be a biker chick. And there were other girls there that day, but they were all just, I don't know, drinking in the corner or something. It's like, and me and I get my face on camera ethos, so I'm all over the place, and the other girls you don't see them. It looks like Cassandra Peters and I are the only two biker chicks. There was about 6. You never see them.
Yeah. And of course, Elizabeth Daly played Dottie in this. Yeah. No, Tim Burton, of course, directed this. This was his first. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Look where he is now.
It was the perfect thing.
Yep.
He was the perfect guy.
Yeah. Did you get to sleep over at Pee-wee's Playhouse?
No. Oh, gosh.
You wouldn't spend the night there?
Isn't it amazing?
Mm-hmm. And, of course, Little Miss Sunshine. I just interviewed Jeff Mead, who was in that. I was talking to him about Miss March, which he said he was surprised that somebody liked Miss March. He said he liked it, but he was also in Little Miss Sunshine as one of the parents there at the pageant. And yeah.
I worked on that for a few days, and I was in a couple of different scenes. We were the pageant workers, but all that got cut. And I think I even was in a scene with Steve Carell, and but everything got cut. So you just see me. It's at the end of the movie, and he's running in to get her signed up for the pageant, and I kind of step aside, like he's all hyper and running in there, and I'm walking down the hall, and we just kind of step aside to make way for him, because he's like tearing through the hall. So it's just a real quick thing. But like I said, I was actually in it, quite a bit more than that.
Okay.
But it got cut. Yeah, that happens.
Well, what's up now with you? What's coming up in the future?
Retired.
You're retired? No, don't give me that.
I'm retired. No, I haven't been trying to get work. it was just getting harder and harder to get extra work. And I thought, I've been doing this for 40 years, nigh on 40 years now, and, I can't even get an extra job. I don't know. I'm kind of over it all. And I just, I like chilling. And, if somebody, Paul called me to be in Pee-wee's Big Holiday, which he did for Netflix, which if you haven't seen it, it's similar to Big Adventure in that it's a cross-country trek, and a lot of the same actors are in it. Diane, what's her face, Salinger plays a Katharine Hepburn type character, and Doug is in it, and I'm in it. So a lot of groundlings are in it, and a lot of people that he's used before in other movies are in it, and it's really fun. And he's trying to get to New York for Joe Manganiello's birthday.
Okay.
So Joe is passing through a little small town where Pee-wee lives, and he said, "Don't you ever want to have an adventure? Don't you ever want to, see another part of the country or whatever?" And so he invites Pee-wee to New York for his birthday party. So it's Pee-wee trying to get to New York for Joe's birthday party. So I'm helping Joe get ready for his birthday party, and I'm his stylist, and I'm showing him suits to wear. It's a little montage, a little vignette of him trying to pick out a suit, and I'm helping him.
You mentioned this is Spinal Tap earlier. I love that movie.
Yeah, I was in that too. Got cut out.
Oh, did you?
Well, that's the footage I was trying to get for my own reel, because there was a lot of improvisation, and I had scenes with Harry Shearer, and it was. I was in the rooftop scene near the end, the Hyatt House pool rooftop party, and there was a lot of people there, but they ended up using like 2 shots and close-ups and all this. You hardly ever see anybody else at the party.
Okay.
But I was there. But, yeah, a lot of people I know worked on it. A lot of people, who are famous have small parts in it. It's like they were just, using It's like they must have shot 40 hours of film for that.
Do you get to do the convention scene very much?
I haven't, and if like a couple of friends of mine do it, like Edie just did one. But if there was something for the cast of Carrie or the cast of Big Wednesday or the cast of, of anything, I would show up. I'd love to do that. But not just by myself. I wouldn't like have my own table or anything. But if I was involved with a group as a cast of something, I would do it. Because my friend does some for Big Wednesday. So, I mentioned to him one time, if you do another one. But yeah, I'd love to do it. I think it's a great thing.
I suppose Doug Cox doesn't do them, does he?
I don't know if he has or not.
You got to whip him into shape.
Yeah, he's pretty low key.
Yeah.
He likes to work, and he's out there. He's still trying to get jobs, and he's always doing some stage show here and there, and so he's still very much active. But just as far as in his personal life, he's kind of soft-spoken and, maybe a little bit shy, I guess,
Wouldn't it be interesting if he showed up at one of those conventions wearing the tuxedo you had him carry?
Oh, I know. It's like, I wish someone would organize it. I'd love to do it. I'm sure he would show up for one of those.
Yeah.
Edie, of course, does it with her own, on her own. They ask her, Edie, because she has so many projects, so she's quite well known as far as, character actors go. So she has a big fan base, so she can have her own table.
Yeah. Well, there's a question I ask all my guests. I love hearing about this. Is what's the most interesting thing you've ever been asked to sign?
Oh, well, interestingly enough, you ask that. I work at a little tour company called Dearly Departed Tours.
Okay.
And my boss, Scott Michaels, he's got quite a presence on social media. He does a podcast, and he has a website and everything. And so he's been interviewed. He has a following. He asked me to sign some tampons, to plug it up and then autograph them, to give out for certain promos for things that he's had, and just to give away as he's just tickled that I'm one of the bad girls in Carrie, and he loves to tell everybody about it. So, yeah, that would be it, the tampon. In red, of course, red magic marker. Red tampon. Plug it up, Terry Bolo. Terry.
Oh, wow. Have you seen Sissy's Basics since, Carrie?
No.
No?
Mm-mm.
Well, do you have any charities that you want to plug on here?
Gosh, I don't really, but I volunteer at an animal shelter, so I'm always for kids and animals,
Mm-hmm.
and the environment, and people, disaster relief, so stuff like that. Being helpful and giving out love and care to children and animals and people in need. So anything like that, I try to give a little money to here and there.
Okay. You got a website you want to plug on here?
I do not have a website, but I have a blog. It's The Hollywood Gal at blogspot.com, and I haven't written on it in a while, but I have several stories, and one about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and one about me working as a costume character as Woody Woodpecker, and just growing up in Hollywood. So The Hollywood Gal, so my little misadventures in Hollywood. So yeah, and that's my little website. I also have an interview on a Cult Film Freak, and of course, I have my IMDb. But yeah, no, I don't have my own website. No.
Okay. All right. Well, here's a big, wide question for you. What is your best experience ever in a movie, and what's your worst?
Oh gosh, I would have to say that Big Wednesday probably has to be the best because we all bonded and we all partied for 10 years after that. I mean, we all just hung out together all the time. It was like one big long party, and we were hanging out on the beach, up on location. And I don't know the worst, anything that goes over 14 hours.
Okay. Well, you're not too hard to please then.
Oh, I can remember working on something that's like, are we ever going to go home? But oddly enough, I have never gotten golden time in all my years, and it's like I got cut off at 15 and a half hours. You know what I mean? Never made it to that 16 hours, double time and a half. Never. Or no, I think you get an extra day's check. I don't know. Anyway, never got into golden time. But yeah, it's like just those days where you just think, oh my God, you're just so weary, and are we ever going to go home? And
Did you go home? Did you finally make it?
Finally. Oh.
Yeah, I noticed you also did a little bit of TV in there. I don't watch TV, but I noticed.
I was on the Love Boat a lot. Yeah, and I was a stand-in on a TV show for 18 years, several different shows. Newhart, Designing Women, Roseanne. So that lasted a long time.
Yeah, you're listed here for St. Elsewhere, of course, Newhart, Baby Talk, 24. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a few shows that I would work on quite frequently. It's like, when the ADs get to know you, they like to use the same people because they know you're reliable, and they don't have to go looking for you and whatever, you know what I mean? So yeah, and St. Elsewhere was one of those, and The Love Boat, and so yeah, there were several TV shows that I worked on quite a bit.
And of course, you're listed as casting assistant for Days of Heaven. That must.
Yeah, that was a real interesting experience. I had befriended a casting director named Gino Havens, and I asked him if I could just come and watch him interview people and to see how everybody just conducted themselves on an interview. Something I just wanted to observe. So he did, and then he ended up hiring me as his assistant, and then I ended up getting hired. I think it kind of pissed him off, but by Terrence Malick and Karen Ray, and then that got me into working for Warner Brothers, And yeah, so one thing leads to another, so you never know where something's going to lead you. But yeah, I was interviewing people on videotape for Terry. He couldn't be there, and he wanted to get started. He saw so many people, and he got tired of just hearing his lines being read over and over and over. Because I was in the groundlings and we improvised, I would people to improvise, and he loved that.
Okay.
And because he could see them as an actor, and not have to hear all those same lines over and over and over again. So.
You had Richard Gere. You had Brooke Adams. I love Brooke Adams.
Oh, he really liked her from the very beginning, but he continued to see people, and then he brought her back. Oh, we saw John Travolta for that. Oh, everybody went up for that. I swear. I can't tell you the people. I remember Dennis Quaid coming in. I remember Jeff Goldblum, and I was reading with all these people. I was conducting the interviews and reading with all these people. Came in for that, and it was kind of a out of left field surprise thing when he went with Sam. What's his face? Yeah, it's like, what? Really? Isn't he a writer? But yeah, so many people read for that. And
of course, you're listed as ADR voice uncredited for Jaws: The Revenge, and
really?
Well, it's what it says here on IMDb. Or are you just embarrassed on that one? Because I haven't heard anything good about it.
What did I do? ADR, additional dialogue recording?
Jaws: The Revenge says so right here. ADR voice uncredited.
Oh, you know what, Greg? I think my phone's going to die pretty soon. Because I'm on... Are you there?
Yep.
Okay, because I just heard a little dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee. Because we've been talking for like an hour and a half, and I don't think I've ever had my phone, like, I don't talk on the phone as long.
Well, you know what? We're about to close off anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to lose you before we can sign off, but it might just go dead because I heard that.
You mean kind of like what Jaws: The Revenge did? Oh, it went dead.
Maybe it's just something I don't remember. I don't know. There's a lot of things. It's like I don't.
A lot of people don't want to remember that.
Well, no, I'm not just playing games. I just. Yeah, there it goes again. I just don't really remember what I did. I'll have to, unless it's a mistake. I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you what. Before I let you go, would you mind doing a plug for my show?
This is Terry Bolo, and you are listening to Greg Gilbert on Python...
Paradise.
Python Paradise! Talk radio!
Thank you so much, Terry, for coming on here and talking about Carrie.
I apologize again for the long delay in getting back to you.
Oh, don't worry about it. Jeepers, I've had people get back to me after a year because of Facebook Messenger filters a lot of messages.
Well, there it goes again. Well, you have yourself a great day over there in Canada.
You have yourself a wonderful day, and God bless.
Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.